In 2012, Robert Mitchell met Erica Collins at a networking event in Atlanta, Georgia. Robert, a 42-year-old financial consultant, was known for his sharp suits, charming smile, and an impressive portfolio of high-profile clients. Erica, 38, worked as a nurse at a local hospital, balancing her demanding job with raising her 13-year-old daughter, Lily, on her own. The two connected immediately, their shared laughter and easy conversation setting the stage for what seemed like a perfect romance. Within a year, Robert and Erica were married, blending their lives into what appeared to be the perfect family. Robert took on the role of a dedicated stepfather, attending Lily's school events and providing her with the emotional stability that had been missing since her father left when she was a toddler. To the outside world, Robert was the ideal husband and stepfather, attentive, generous, and deeply invested in his new family. As Lily grew into a teenager, the dynamics within the Mitchell household began to shift. While Erica worked long shifts at the hospital, Robert often found himself alone with Lily, bonding over dinner or helping her with schoolwork. Robert's attention filled a void in Lily's life, one she hadn't realized she had. At first it was innocent, a father figure's support that Lily had long craved. However, as months passed, the relationship between Robert and Lily took on a subtle, unsettling undertone. Robert's involvement in Lily's life went beyond the typical boundaries of stepfatherly care. He would compliment her appearance, sometimes in ways that made Erica uncomfortable, though she brushed it off as innocent affection. Lily, navigating the confusion of adolescence, found herself increasingly drawn to Robert's attention. His praise felt intoxicating, and she began to confide in him more than she did with her own mother. Erica, caught up in her demanding work schedule, was grateful for Robert's involvement, but couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. The late-night conversations, the way Robert would sometimes linger too long when he hugged Lily, and the constant texting between them began to raise small red flags. But Erica, always rationalizing, attributed it to Robert's efforts to be a good stepfather and Lily's need for a father figure. By the time Lily turned 16, the Mitchell household's cracks were becoming more evident. Robert's business trips had increased, and when he was home, his attention seemed divided. Erica noticed his growing detachment, and the way Lily seemed to be the only one who could bring a smile to his face. The once loving interactions between Erica and Robert had been replaced with brief, superficial conversations that barely scratched the surface of their once deep connection. Erica's mind raced, piecing together every suspicious moment she'd overlooked. The affectionate glances, the private conversations, the growing divide between her and Robert. It all suddenly made sense. The truth, though still unspoken, was impossible to ignore. But Erica wasn't ready to confront it, not yet. She needed more than just a gut feeling. She needed undeniable proof of the betrayal that was tearing her family apart. Determined to uncover the truth, Erica began to quietly observe Robert and Lily's interactions. She noticed the lingering touches, the way they shared inside jokes that she wasn't a part of, and the suspiciously locked doors when they were alone together. Still, Erica kept her emotions in check, carefully hiding her growing suspicions. She needed undeniable proof before confronting the two people she loved most. One afternoon, while Robert was on another one of his frequent business trips, Erica decided to search their home for more evidence. She scoured Robert's office, rifling through drawers and looking through his files, but found nothing incriminating. Then, tucked beneath a stack of old tax documents, she discovered a second phone, one she had never seen before. The screen was locked, but Erica felt her heart drop. What was Robert hiding? That evening, while Lily was out with friends, Erica managed to unlock the phone. What she found shattered any lingering doubts she had. Text messages between Robert and Lily filled the screen, starting off innocently enough, but gradually evolving into something far more sinister. There were confessions of love, flirtatious exchanges, and plans to meet in secret when Erica was at work. The explicit photos and suggestive messages were a testament to the full extent of their relationship, one that had crossed every imaginable boundary. The reality hit Erica like a punch to the gut. Robert, the man she had trusted and loved, was not just betraying her with another woman, he was betraying her with her own daughter. Nausea swept over her as she scrolled through the messages, her mind struggling to comprehend the betrayal and manipulation that had been happening right under her nose. Erica's world began to spiral. She spent the next few days in a daze, torn between confronting them and keeping the family's secret hidden out of shame. But the more she tried to pretend everything was normal, the more her anger festered. The trust she once had in Robert was gone, replaced by a burning rage that she could barely contain. Unable to confront Robert directly, Erica decided to speak to Lily first. She waited until they were alone, choosing a moment when Robert was away. She approached Lily with a mix of sadness and fury, demanding to know the truth about what was happening between her and Robert. Caught off guard, Lily initially denied everything, her face flushed with panic. but as Erica continued to press, her voice cracking with the weight of her own pain, Lily finally broke down. Tears streamed down Lily's face as she confessed. She admitted that her relationship with Robert had started innocently, but as time passed, their bond had deepened into something neither of them had been able to control. She expressed guilt and confusion, insisting that she never meant to hurt her mother, but her words did little to soothe Erica's rage. The betrayal wasn't just Robert's, it was Lily's too, and the pain of that double betrayal was unbearable. Erica couldn't bring herself to look at her daughter the same way again. The person she had loved, raised and protected, had not only betrayed her, but had become entangled in something deeply wrong. Lily's apologies and tears felt hollow, and Erica's anger turned into a cold, unforgiving resolve. She knew she couldn't keep this secret any longer. That night, when Robert returned from his trip, Erica confronted him with the evidence. The house that had once been filled with love and laughter erupted into chaos. Robert's calm facade crumbled as Erica hurled accusations, holding up the phone and reading aloud the vile messages she had discovered. Robert tried to defend himself, offering excuses about misunderstandings and momentary lapses in judgment, but Erica was unmoved. She wanted answers, not justifications. The confrontation spiraled out of control, with Lily caught in the middle, sobbing uncontrollably as her parents' voices filled the house. Robert's attempts to placate Erica only fueled her anger further, pushing her to the brink of her sanity. All the years of trust, love, and sacrifice were unraveling in a single night, leaving only bitterness and betrayal in their wake. The heated confrontation between Erica and Robert continued to escalate, with every word exchanged adding fuel to an already raging fire. Robert's desperate attempts to minimize his actions only served to deepen Erica's fury. She couldn't believe the man she had built a life with had so callously crossed every line imaginable. The betrayal, the lies, and the audacity of his excuses were more than she could bear. Lily, trapped in the crossfire, stood frozen with tears streaming down her face. The guilt and shame were written all over her, but Erica's anger was too consuming to offer any comfort. She wanted to lash out at both of them, to make them feel even a fraction of the pain that had torn her apart over the past few days. Robert, realizing he was losing control of the situation, tried to turn the conversation toward reconciliation. "Erica, we can work through this," he pleaded, his voice shaky. "I made a mistake, one that I regret every day. But we can fix this. We can be a family again." But his words only stoked Erica's rage further. "A mistake," she shouted, her voice trembling with a mixture of disbelief and fury. "This isn't a mistake, Robert. This is sick. You've destroyed our family." As the argument grew more heated, Erica felt her emotions spiraling out of control. She stormed into the kitchen, needing to distance herself from Robert's hollow apologies and Lily's anguished cries. The kitchen had always been her sanctuary, a place where she found solace in cooking and quiet moments. But tonight, it felt suffocating, filled with memories of a life that had been irreversibly tainted. In a moment of blind anger and desperation, Erica's eyes fell upon a large kitchen knife on the counter. She picked it up, gripping the handle tightly as her breath came in ragged gasps. The cold metal felt heavy in her hand, reflecting the harsh light of the overhead bulb. She didn't have a plan. She didn't even know what she was going to do. All she knew was that the pain and betrayal were too much to bear. Robert, sensing the danger, stepped into the kitchen, his eyes widening at the sight of the knife. "Erica, put it down," he said, his voice laced with fear. But Erica couldn't hear him through the roaring in her ears. The weight of everything she had discovered, the lies, the manipulation, the sheer audacity, boiled over in a single uncontrollable burst of rage. Before anyone could react, Erica lunged at Robert, the knife slicing through the air. The first strike caught him off guard, and he staggered back, clutching his side as blood began to seep through his shirt. Lily screamed, rushing forward, but Erica was lost in a frenzy of pain and anger. Each thrust of the knife was a release of every ounce of heartbreak she had endured. The violence was brutal and relentless, fueled by the betrayal that had shattered her world. Robert's cries of agony filled the room, but Erica was beyond reason. She couldn't stop, not until every bit of her rage had been spent. By the time she finally pulled away, Robert was lying motionless on the kitchen floor, the once pristine tiles stained with his blood. Erica, her hands trembling and covered in crimson, stared at what she had done, her mind struggling to process the magnitude of her actions. Lily stood paralyzed, her screams echoing in Erica's ears like a distant, haunting wail. The horror of the scene, the knife, the blood, Robert's lifeless body hung heavily in the air, suffocating and irreversible. Erica dropped the knife, her legs giving way beneath her as she collapsed to the floor beside Robert. The realization of what she had done, of how far her rage had driven her, sank in, crushing her beneath its weight. Overcome with shock and terror, frantically dialed 911, her hands shaking so badly she could barely press the buttons. She choked out the details of what had happened, her voice breaking as she described the horrific scene unfolding before her. The operator's calm instructions were a distant blur in her mind. All she could focus on was the sight of her stepfather's blood pooling around him and her mother's hollow, vacant stare. As the sirens wailed in the distance, Erica sat motionless, her thoughts a tangled mess of anger, guilt, and despair. The life she had once fought so hard to build was gone, replaced by the cold, unforgiving reality of her actions. There would be no going back. Not for her, not for Robert, and certainly not for Lily, who would forever be haunted by the violence that had erupted in their home. The police arrived within minutes, flooding the Mitchell home with flashing lights and urgent voices. Officers quickly moved in, securing the scene and attending to Erica, who sat numbly beside Robert's lifeless body. Her clothes were soaked in blood, her expression vacant as she stared at the chaos unfolding around her. It was as though she were trapped in a nightmare from which she couldn't wake up. Lily, still trembling, was led outside by an officer who tried to console her as she recounted the horrifying events. Her words were disjointed, barely audible between sobs, but the reality was clear. The stepfather she had adored was dead, and her mother, the woman she loved despite everything, was responsible. The weight of her own role in the tragedy hung over her, a shadow that would follow her for the rest of her life. Erica was arrested at the scene, her wrists cuffed behind her back as she was guided into the back of a police car. She didn't resist. There was no fight left in her. The gravity of her actions had finally sunk in, and all she could feel was an overwhelming sense of loss. As the car pulled away, Erica looked back at her home, once a symbol of hope and family, now a crime scene marked with police tape. The investigation moved quickly. Detectives combed through the Mitchell house, gathering evidence that painted a disturbing picture of the family's downfall. The second phone, the explicit messages, and Lily's tearful confession provided the missing pieces of a narrative that was as tragic as it was shocking. Erica's actions were brutal, but the affair between Robert and Lily explained the depths of her fury. At the trial, the courtroom was packed, with the media closely following every twist and turn. Erica's defense team argued that her actions were driven by temporary insanity, fueled by the profound emotional pain of discovering the affair. They described her as a devoted wife and mother who had been pushed beyond her breaking point, and the knife attack as a moment of uncontrollable rage rather than premeditated intent. Lily testified in court, her voice trembling as she recounted the complex and toxic relationship she had with Robert. She admitted her own guilt and shame, speaking of how Robert's manipulation had blurred the lines of what was right and wrong. Her testimony was a mix of sorrow and regret, highlighting the emotional manipulation she had endured and the devastating impact it had on her family. The prosecution, however, focused on the violence of Erica's actions. They argued that no amount of betrayal could justify such a brutal act, and the images of Robert's bloodied body left an indelible mark on the jury. Despite the compelling defense, the evidence was overwhelming. The jury found Erica guilty of second-degree murder, a verdict that carried a lengthy prison sentence. Sentenced to 25 years behind bars, Erica sat stoically as the judge handed down her punishment. There were no tears, no outbursts, just a quiet acceptance of the life that lay ahead. For her, the prison walls would serve as a constant reminder of the night her world fell apart and the choices that had led her there. Lily's life, too, was forever changed. She withdrew from school, struggling to cope with the fallout from the affair and her stepfather's murder. Therapy sessions became her lifeline as she tried to piece together a future from the wreckage of her past. The media attention, the whispers from former friends, and the relentless guilt weighed heavily on her, but she was determined to move forward. Lily knew she had to live with the consequences of her choices, and while the road ahead was uncertain, she clung to the hope of rebuilding some semblance of a life. In the years that followed, the Mitchell family's story became a cautionary tale, a tragic example of how secrets, lies, and unspoken desires can tear apart even the most seemingly perfect of lives. For Erica, Robert, and Lily, the events of that fateful night were a stark reminder of the fragile nature of trust and the destructive power of betrayal. In the end, there were no winners, only survivors, each left to grapple with their own demons, haunted by the choices that had brought them to this point. The once idyllic family portrait had been shattered, leaving behind only fragments of what could have been. The Mitchells would never be whole again, and the legacy of their downfall would linger long after the final gavel had fallen.